Shabbat Shalom. Today and this weekend represent several days of recognition and remembrance. And as Shabbat is an exploration of how we tangibly move towards the ideal of Yeh Adonai Echad, Ushmo Echad, that we shall all be part of the same existence and call out with our very breath the reality of that same existence. Not that we all bow down to the same form of religion, but that we all join on what's important and stop being so obsessed by the things that are less important, our tribal standards. And we have two moments and days of remembrance, and the Shabbat is the Jewish Women's Aid Shabbat, to raise the issue of domestic violence and sexual abuse within the Jewish community. And if you've been following any of the literature, not only within the Jewish community, but violence and marital violence and sexual violence have all increased dramatically during COVID due to the fact that we are unself-aware. And when we get locked in together with other people, our unself-awareness becomes destructive. It is also something that within progressive Judaism that we are incredibly proud of, that we do observe an International Transgender Day of Remembrance, and progressive Judaism has been on the absolute forefront of recognizing rights in profound ways. And these are two things that I want to make sure I mention at the beginning of the service instead of during announcements, because they do help us with a kavanah, with an intentionality for the service, because one of the meanings, I believe, of the Messianic time, or of Ha'olam Haba, the coming days, is that we know we still need days like this. We still need to recognize that people who have differences than us are still not treated the way that they should be. In other words, the way that we would want to be in the most ethical sense. The fact that we are still harmful and abusive to others. And the reality is we have to have these days of remembrance, and we have to have specific Shabbats so that we can step into that place of saying, oh yes, these are issues. How am I a part of this issue? How am I making it worse? How am I healing that? What am I doing to educate myself? How large is my circle of understanding, and how large do I allow that to be? Because the ideal will be we won't need any days of remembrance of anything at some point in a messianic future, because we won't have treated anyone in a way that is abusive. We won't have oppressed any individual. And so it is a good reminder as we step into Shabbat that if you would like to get more information, please look at our website. But it's even more important than that. It is that opportunity to say, if we need to call out differences, then there's still work to be done in order to make us all one and to truly bring about the call of the prophets, Yeh Adonai Echad, Ushmo Echad. Please rise as we light or say our blessing over our already lit Shabbat candles.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kisham b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu, lehadlik ner shel Shabbat.
We start on page 111. We take this journey together. We lift each other up in this journey. And yeah, maybe it's a little bit harder when we are in different locations and we're not lifting each other in the same room. Boy, oh boy, do we have an opportunity to walk into this space together again and sing very loudly all of this music, huh? I think that I have high expectations, but I think that we have the ability to meet them. Let's sing loudly at home tonight. Let's scare our neighbor's cat. Why not? Let's make Shabbat happen.
Lechu neranna l'Adonai, Lechu neranna l'Adonai, Nariya l'tzur yishenu, Nariya l'tzur yishenu, Nekad ma'afanav betoda v'zmiro nariya lo, Nekad ma'afanav betoda v'zmiro nariya lo, Ki el gadol Adonai, Melech gadol hakol Elohim, Ki el gadol Adonai, Melech gadol hakol Elohim, Lehu neranna l'Adonai, Lehu neranna Asher benu mekare aretz metuafot harim lo, Asher lo yam vehu asahu ma'ibeshet yadav yatzaru, Boi nishtachavei v'nichra'ani v'chabnai Adonai Oseinu, Ki hu Eloheinu v'nachnu amarito v'tzon yado Hayom imekol lo tishmanu. Yanai na nai nai yanai nai nai yanai nai nai yanai nai nai yanai nai yanai nai nai yanai nai yanai nai nai yanai nai 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 yanai nai nai yanai nai yanai nai nai Shiru Ladonai, Shir Chadash, Shiru Ladonai, Kol Haaretz, Shiru Ladonai, Baruch Shemo, Tasru miyom leyom, Yeshuato, Sapru Bagoyim, Kevodo, Bechol Harim, Niflotav, Ki Gadol Adonai, Hulal Meyo, Norahu. Al kol Elohim, yai nai nai ki kol Elohim, ha'amim melelim, v'Adonai shmayim asa, od v'hada lefanav, od v'tiferet b'mikdasho, havul Adonai mishpachotam, havul Adonai kavod va'oz, havul Adonai kavod shemo. Chatzrotam, Yainai, Naishtachvul Adonai, Behadra Kodesh, Chilu Mipanav Kol Haaretz, Imru Vagoyim Adonai Malach, Aptikon Tevel Ba'adim, Yadim Na'amin V'Mesharim, Yismechu Shmayim B'Tagel Haaretz, Yiram Hayam, Umalo, Yalo Sadai, Bechol Asher Bo Yanai Nai Az Yaranenu Kol Atzayah Lifnei Adonai Kihiva Yishpot Haaretz Yishpot Tever Tever B'tzedek Ve'amim Ve'emunato Yanai Nai 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 Yai Nai 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 Yai Nai 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 Yai Nai 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 Yai Nai Nai Yai Nai Nai Yai Nai 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 Yai Nai Nai Yai Nai 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 Yai Nai Nai Yai Nai Nai Yai Nai Yai Nai Nai Adonai Malach Tagel Haaretz Yismuchim Rabim Anan Va'arafel Sevivav Tzedek Mishpat Mechon Kiso. Last four verses on 115. If you are still davening the psalm, just put on pause anytime I am jumping so that you can daven at your own leisure. Or zarua la tzadik o yishrei lev simcha or zarua la tzadik o yishrei lev simcha Simchu tzadikim b'Adonai b'Adonai vehodu lezecher kodsho lezecher kodsho or zarua la tzadik o yishrei lev Simcha or zarua la tzadik o yishrei lev simcha. 116. מזמור שירו לאדוני שיר חדש, כי נפלאות עשה, הושיע לו ימינו, וזרוע קודשו, הודיע אדוני ישועתו, לעיני הגויים גילה צדקתו, זכר חסדו ואמונתו, לבית ישראל ראו כל אפסי הארץ את ישועת אלוהינו. הריעו לאדוני כל הארץ, פיצחו ורעננו, וזמרו זמרו לאדוני בכינור, בכינור וכל זמרה, בחצוצרות וקול שופר. הריעו לפני המלך אדוני, ירם הים ומלואו, תבל ויושביו, נהרות ימחאו כף, יחד ההרים ירננו לפני אדוני קיבה, לשפוט הארץ, לשפוט טבע בצדק, ועמים ומשרים. יין ניי 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 ניי, יין ניי 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 ניי, יין ניי 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 ניי, יין ניי ניי ניי. אדוני מלך יגזו עמים, יושב קרובים תנות הארץ. אדוני בציון גדול ורמהו על כל העמים, ירושמך גדול ונורא קדוש הוא. Bottom of 118. רוממו, רוממו, אדוני אלוהינו, רוממו, רוממו, אדוני. רוממו, רוממו, אדוני אלוהינו, רוממו, רוממו, אדוני. וישתחוו להר קודשו, וישתחוו להר קודשו, וישתחוו להר קודשו וקודשו. כי קדוש, כי קדוש, אדוני אלוהינו, כי קדוש, כי קדוש, אדוני. כי קדוש, כי קדוש, אדוני אלוהינו, כי קדוש, כי קדוש, אדוני. וישתחוו להר קודשו, וישתחוו להר קודשו, וישתחוו להר קודשו וקודשו. וישתחוו להר קודשו, וישתחוו להר קודשו, וישתחוו להר קודשו וקודשו. בהר הקודש, כל אדוני על המים אל הכבוד ירי, אדוני על מים רבים, כל אדוני בכוח יעיני, כל אדוני מהדר, כל אדוני שובר ארזים, וישמר אדוני את עזי הבנון, וירכיב כמו עגל לבנון בסיריון, כמו בן רעמים יעיני, כל אדוני חוצם לעבודש, כל אדוני יכיל מבר, יכיל אדוני מבר קדש, כל אדוני יחולל איילות, ויחסור יערור, ובחלום לא אומר כבוד, יעיני אדוני למה בו ישב וישב, אדוני מלך לעולם, אדוני עוז לעמו ייתן, אדוני יברך את עמו בשלום, יעיני Page 121 Lecha Dodi Likrat Kala Pnei Shabbat Nei Kabbalat Shemo v'zacho b'dibor echad yishmiyanu El hamiuchad Adonai echad U'shemo echad l'shem tiferet v'litila Lecha dodi likrat kala Pnei Shabbat Nei Kabbalat לקראת שבת, לכו ונלכה כי היא מקור הברכה מראש מקדם, נסוך סוף מעשה במחשבה תחילה, לך דודי, לקראת קלה, פני שבת, נקבלה. מקדש מלך ימלוך ומצאי מתוך האף הרב לך שבט בעמק הבך והוא יחתמול עלייך חמלה לך דודי לקראת קלה בני שבת נקבלה התנערי מאפר גומי שבקתך טיפתך מעל יד בן ישי ותנח מקרבת אל נפשי גהילה לך דודי לקראת קלה בני שבת נקבלה התעוררי כי בפורך אורי שדברי כבוד אדוני עלי לך דודי B'nei Shabbat, B'nei Shabbat, Nekabela. Lech Adoni likrat kala, B'nei Shabbat Nekabela. Lech Adoni likrat kala, B'nei Shabbat Nekabela. לא תבושי ולא תיגעמי, מה תשתוכחי ומה תמי יחסו אני ימי ותקרא יראה גילה. לך אדוני לקראת קלה, בני שבת נקבלה. לך אדוני לקראת קלה, בני שבת נקבלה. והיו למשיסה שוסייך ורחקו כל מבלייך יסיס אלייך אלוהייך נמצאת קטנה גלה. לך אדוני לקראת קלה, בני שבת נקבלה. לך אדוני לקראת קלה, בני שבת נקבלה. ימין ושמאל תפרוצי ואת אדוני תריצי, על יד ואיש תרצי ונשמחה ונגילה. לך אדוני לקראת קלה, בני שבת נקבלה. לך אדוני לקראת קלה, בני שבת נקבלה. בואי ושלום, עטרת בעלה גם בשמחה ובצהלה, תוך אמונה עם סגולה. בואי כלה, בואי כלה. לך דודי לקראת קלה, בני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת קלה, בני שבת נקבלה.
Page 124, a deep breath as we breathe in Shabbat, as we officially enter Shabbat together. End of the psalm. Tzadik tamar yifrach ke'erez balvanon yisgei shetulim beveit Adonai bechatzrot Eloheinu yafrichu or yenuvun beseva deshenim vera'ananim yiyu lehagid ki yashar Adonai tzuri tzuri velo avlatabo. Page 126. Adonai malach geut lavesh, lavesh Adonai oz hit azar, aftikon tevel bal timot, nachon kisecha me'az me'olam ata. Nas'u neharot Adonai, nas'u neharot kolam, yis'u neharot doch yam. Mikolot mayim rabim adirim mishmereyam. Mikolot mayim rabim adirim mishmereyam. Adir bamarom Adonai, Adir bamarom Adonai, Mikolo mayim rabim, Adirim
Adir Mamarom Adonai. Adir Mamarom Adonai. Adir Mamarom Adonai. Adir Mamarom Adonai.
Page 127, we step into the sacred space together with intentionality. What is our intentionality now? We're moving towards the Shema, where we bind ourselves together into that reality of Echad. That doesn't just happen. That takes work, takes binding. It starts with bowing and stepping forward and making a decision that this is the right work for us to do. Bless the living God, whom we are called to bless. Blessed is the living God, whom we are called to bless forever and ever. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bidvaro ma'ariv aravim, b'chochma poteach she'arim, ובתבונה משנה עתים, ומחליף את הזמנים, ומסדר את הכוכבים, במשמרותיהם ברקיע כרצונו, בורא יום ולילה, גולל אור מפני חושך, וחושך מפני אור, המעביר יום ומביא לילה, ומבדיל בין יום ובין לילה, אדוני צבאות שמו, ברוך אתה אדוני, המעריב ערבים. אהבת עולם בית ישראל, עמך אהבת, תורה ומצוות, חוקים ומשפטים, אותנו לימדת. על כן אדוני אלוהינו, בשוכבנו ובקומנו, נשיח בחוקיך, ונשמח ונעלוז בדברי תורתך, ובמצוותיך וחוקותיך לעולם ועד, כי הם חיינו ואורך ימינו, ובהם נגה יומם ולילה, כי הם חיינו ואורך ימינו, ובהם נגה יומם ולילה, כי הם חיינו ואורך ימינו, ובהם נגה יומם ולילה, כי הם חיינו ואורך ימינו, ובהם נגה יומם ולילה, כי הם חיינו ואורך ימינו, ובהם נגה יומם ולילה, כי הם חיינו ואורך ימינו, ובהם נגה יומם ולילה. ועבדך אל תסיר ממנו לעולמים, ברוך אתה אדוני, אוהב את עמו ישראל. שמע ישראל, אדוני אלוהינו, Adonai, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod, Shem Kevod, Malchuto Leolam, Leolam. And you shall love the eternal your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. These words that I command you today shall be upon your heart, shall be upon your heart. Repeat them to your children and talk about them when you're sitting in your home, when you walk in the street, and when you lie down, and when you rise up, secure them as a sign upon your hand, and let them be as reminders before your eyes. Write them on the doorposts of your home and at your gates, and at your gates. 132. V'hayam shmot ishmot. Ki me'ashamayim al ha'aretz. למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם, אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים, אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם אמת. וימנע כל זאת וקיים עלינו, כי הוא אדוני אלוהינו ואין זולתו, ואנחנו ישראל עמו העושה גדולות עד אין חקר ונפלאות עד אין מספר. וראו ועניו גבוהתו שבחו והודו לשמו מלכותו ברצון קיבלו עליהם משה ומרים ובני ישראל לכענו שירה בשמחה רבה ואמרו כולם with maybe a different nigun. Yain na 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 na. Yain na 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 na. Yain na 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 na. Yain na 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 na. Yain na. Yain na. Yain na na. Yain na na na. Yain na na na. With joy, mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nedar b'kodesh, mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi chamocha nedar b'kodesh. Nora tehilot osei velei, Nora tehilot osei velei. Adonai, imloch leolam vayed. Malchutcha ra'u v'hanecha, bokei hayam lifnei Moshe. Ze eli anu ve'amru, ze eli anu ve'amru. Adonai, imloch leolam vayed. Ya na 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 na. Ya na 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 na. Ya na 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 na. Ya na 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 na. Nora tehilot osef elei. Nora tehilot osef elei. Adonai imloch leolam va'ed. כי פרע אדוני את יעקב ולא מיד חזק ממנו, ברוך אתה אדוני גאל ישראל. 136, the intentionality of asking for shelter, but also asking ourselves how we give shelter to others. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu Leshalom Behamidenu Malkeinu Lechaim Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu Leshalom Behamidenu Malkeinu Lechaim Ufros Aleinu Sukat Shelomecha Ufros Aleinu Sukat Shelomecha Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu Leshalom Behamidenu Malkeinu Lechaim Source of our life and our sovereign, cause us to lie down in peace and rise again to enjoy life. And spread over us the covering of your peace, guide us for your good counsel, and save us for the sake of your name. Be a shield about us, turning away every enemy and disease, violence, hunger, and sorrow. Remove the temptation that awaits us and the guilt that lies behind us, and shelter us in the shadow of your wings, for you are a God who protects and guards us, a ruler of mercy and compassion. Guard us when we go out and when we come in, to enjoy life and peace both now and forever, and spread over us the shelter of your peace. Blessed are you, eternal, spreading the shelter of peace over us, over your people Israel, and over all the world. Baruch atah Adonai, haporei sukat shalom aleinu, ve'al amo Yisrael, ve'al kol ha'olam. V'shameru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, la'asot et ha-Shabbat, l'dorotam berit olam. Yanai beini uven b'nei Yisrael oti le'olam, ki sheshet yamim asa Adonai et hashemayim ve'et haaretz, uvayom hashvi'i shavat vayinafash, uvayom hashvi'i shavat vayinafash. Please rise. Our silent Amidah begins on page 140. Adonai, Sephatai Tiftach, Ufi Agita Hilatecha. If you're still davening, just put this on pause and take all the time you need. Yiyu neratzon imrefi vegioni bi lefanecha Adonai tzuri Adonai tzuri vegoani vegoani yiyu leratzon imrefi legioni bi levanecha Adonai tzuri Adonai tzuri vegoani vegoani I love a good conversation. If you know me, you know that I love a good conversation. And if you know one of the indicators between introversion and extroversion, and yes, shock to everyone, I am actually an introvert. I know, I don't play one on TV, but I am indeed an introvert. One of the indicators is how we approach conversation, and extroverts are brilliant at small talk. It comes natural. It is just the gift of gab. I mean, the ability to step into any situation and just have the right words that don't have to go into anything more than that. It's something that I envy. I can do it, but I am exhausted after I do that. And I would so much rather, if I'm at a party, not move from group to group and talk about the weather 30 times, but I'd much rather find that cushion in the far corner, and then someone who maybe I don't know as well as I should sits down there, and then 3 hours later, the entire world has opened up via a conversation that started with a discussion of the beaches in Brighton, and in the end ended up with the newest advances in string theory and M theory. And you know it happens exactly like that. And it takes 3 hours, and there's no way that you can actually trace back all the steps on how you got there, but it was just that natural, organic thing. You can do this with more than two people, of course. It gets a little complicated because it's even more negotiation of making sure that one person doesn't dominate the conversation. Yes, I know, pot, black, I'm calling it right there. I tend to love to talk so much that I forget to not talk on occasion. Guilty as charged. But in order to make it work, there's several steps that really have to happen. Number one, you have to kind of know what's being talked about, right? I mean, if you're in a conversation and the conversation is about the Jacobite rebellion and you don't even know what the Jacobite rebellion is, then we're close enough to the Scottish border, I think we'd probably better all know what the Jacobite rebellion is. But if you don't, you're not going to have a very good conversation. It's not that I'm a bad person for not knowing that. Well, maybe if I'm this close to the Scottish border, different question altogether. And no, I'm not doing my Scottish accent tonight. But if you can't start with the main subject, it's not going to be there. So part of the negotiation, the dialogue of two people or more is hopefully steering mostly into areas where there's some commonality. What are the basic words we're saying? And we have to understand each other. It can be a really big challenge since I'm sitting here. I talk fast. I've got an American accent. I listen to a few minutes of these on occasion, and I say, wow, how can anyone understand a single word that I'm saying because my diction is so American? I'm trying. It takes a while on occasion. I've been talking this way for a while. We have to understand what each other's saying, and then we have to understand what we're saying, don't we? If each of those components is true, then we might reach that fourth step where at the end of those 3 hours, you walk away with that feeling that something's been gained. Walking with that feeling that something profound has just happened. started with this much and it spun out into so much more. I've got a prop for as I turn this into Torah. It's going to look weird on the plague map because the prop I forgot to bring up here, and it's sitting at 3 meters from me, so let this happen. See, I don't trip as I do this. Oh, there we go. Shouldn't really call a chumash a prop, but this is one of my favorite books I've got in my library. It's just a chumash, but it's a chumash Mikraot Gedolot, which is the great commentators. And of course, every version of the Mikraot Gedolot has different commentators in it. I like this one particularly because it's all 5 books of the Torah in one volume. It's something I can put, it's a little heavy, but I can put in a briefcase, attaché case, is that what we say in this country? And it is all pointed. So Rashi's not in Rashi script. Yes, I know I can read Rashi script, but very slowly and very painfully. And quite frankly, having the text pointed helps me a lot. And here's the really cool thing about it. I don't know if you can actually see it, but I'm going to point out right here is Torah. Okay? Right here is Torah. Those 3 lines right there. The darker big letters at the very top. And the rest of this is our commentary. This is the words that begin the conversation. And then the Chumash with our great commentators is what then makes that into a great conversation that can possibly elevate us in the end. Because notice when you read all of those commentators, even the 2 in there, Rashi and Ibn Ezra, who are known as the Ba'alei HaPashat, the masters of the clear meaning, they disagree with each other all the time. Oh, we forgot about that component in the conversation, didn't we? If we get through 3 hours of that and we've transformed ourselves, even just a little bit, I promise you we've had at least one difference of opinion. And if the conversation's lasted 3 hours, it means we got through that difference of opinion, right? Ibn Ezra and Rashi are on the same page. That must tell us something. Somehow, in those 3 hours, we've probably also said something stupid or offensive or, I don't know, I needed my caffeine in that moment and I didn't refill my champagne and I got cranky and my blood sugar got low and I said something that might have even hurt someone or offended someone in that conversation. And if that conversation has lasted 3 hours, we also worked through that as well. In other words, we kind of have to risk offending each other sometimes even to reach that level where something magnificent or transformative happens. In that conversation where the text is known and then things flow out, we have one of those brilliant moments that start with a few words and then we've got thousands of years of trying to figure out what the heck those few words mean. The conversation among men and women over the course of millennia. And it's that amazing story that I've always found particularly painful and difficult of Jacob stealing the birthright from his elder brother. And what's interesting for me personally is I remember 3 distinct periods of my rabbinate, going from rabbinical student up through ordained rabbi and now on my 4th posting as an ordained rabbi. Just this week is my 9th year anniversary of ordination, so there it is. Mazel tov to my 4 colleagues who are ordained with me. And it's interesting because each of these aspects of the dialogue, it's almost like opening up and the partner's the Torah in this case. And as I read back and forth, it's that conversation spinning out. And the first level is figuring out what the words are saying, and then the second is understanding what people have said about them. What is the Torah saying that means? And then finally, what do I say and what do I mean about that? And the first period that I recognize clearly is the period when I really felt for Isaac. Isaac is clearly older at the end of his life in this scene. And he's being taken advantage of by his wife and his younger son. He can't see very well. What are we going to do to trick Dad? Let's go ahead and put some sheep's wool on my arms so that Dad doesn't know it's me. I remember thinking so clearly that for years, my primary reaction was how profoundly this talks about how we disrespect our elders and how this is universal and how long this has been going on. For many years after that, my interpretation was slightly different because when you look at what Isaac is saying, doesn't it feel as he gets down to are you sure you're not my son Jacob? Because you sure sound a lot like son Jacob. Okay, people who visited Russia, you know what I just did there. I thought for many years after that, well, of course Isaac knew. He's one of our patriarchs. He's one of our ancestors. He's not stupid. I mean, he's reacted in his life in slightly different ways than his father and his sons did. But according to his narrative, he is a just and upright person. So isn't it possible, and what does it say about us, if he was obligated to give Esau his birthright and his blessing, but it terrified him because he knew, he loved Esau. Loving Esau does not mean that he was blind to his faults. Esau sold his birthright for some red soup. It's not going to be completely blind to that. So in the second reading, it is how we, even with a broken heart, sometimes have to follow a series of rules, and how painful it is to follow those rules, where we still hope in our hearts that the right ending comes about. Recently, in the last few years, I found that my interpretation of this, or how I read this text as a rabbi and as a human being, has changed once again. I now disagree with my former self that Isaac is aware of what's happening, because there's one point where it's not Isaac speaking, it's Isaac thinking. And we'll look at this tomorrow when we read this portion. And he's thinking, this really seems like it could be Jacob, but it just can't be, because he has all these elements of my son Esau. And in the age of, and once again, I will continue mentioning the most divisive issues in our various countries, in the age of Trump in the United States, in the age of Brexit in the United Kingdom, I think that this is showing us how long our tradition has known about cognitive dissonance and confirmation bias. Isaac wanted it to be Esau so much that it didn't matter how much some part of him knew it couldn't have been. He convinced himself against his better judgment and against every proof that's given. And if we want to see the manifestation of that, just keep on reading down your news feed and what's happening with ballot counting in my country. I'll leave it at that. So I get to the end of those three, and by way of trying to come back to some sort of conclusion on how Torah is not just like that beautiful dialogue over hours, but it actually is that dialogue. And that dialogue, at some point, in order for it to not go on 5 minutes or 10 minutes, but to go on for that 3 hours, to have that animation, to have that beautiful movement where one thing moves to the next. As we say in German, die Funke fliegen, the sparks are flying. In order for that to happen, you have to step into vulnerability. You have to be willing to change something. Not maybe change your mind, but hear an opinion that's difficult. Because if we shut off every conversation the second that something challenges us, conversations won't last 3 hours. They certainly won't last over thousands of years. And I go back and realize that my three interpretations have absolutely nothing to do with Torah. They have everything to do with me. I haven't read Torah one bit. They're just a clue for me to figure out what I've been bothered by over the last decades. Because that first interpretation of respect for the elders, I started rabbinical school right around the time that both of my grandparents were dying of Alzheimer's and then had died of Alzheimer's. And I realized how profoundly that influenced me on trying to figure out and ask the questions on had I disrespected my elders. I lived 3,000 miles away from my grandfather, who I loved profoundly most of that time. My mom visited him every day. Of course, that would be my interpretation of Torah. The interpretation of Isaac knowing exactly what was going on was while I was finishing up rabbinical school and going through my first postings as a rabbi. And the interpretation was very much about what it takes to be a leader and how pragmatic and how painful it can be to follow the rules and then realize that the rules are not necessarily written for you. And to be blunt about it, this is my fourth rabbinical posting, and not because of the people who interviewed me, who have always been brilliant in each of these jobs, but because of cries that have arisen as people found out that I was a Jew by choice and not a born Jew. 2 out of those 4 postings, I won't say which ones, have required that my smicha, my ordination, be presented and a listing of each of the rabbis who signed it. I don't know of a single born Jew who has graduated from JTS, HUC, Leo Beck, or Abraham Geiger Kolleg who has ever had to present to their communities their smicha in that manner. That's actually called prejudice, and I will call it out for the rest of my life. I'm not sure why I didn't call it out when it happened in the last 10 years. And so, of course, I'm interpreting this of the pain of leadership. And now, well, look what's happening around us. I already called it out. Brexit and Trump and the craziness as we become tribal. See, we read Torah ultimately not as this silly external thing, but it really is a reflection of who we are. It is the proverbial mirror. We keep on running our heads against this thing and saying this is ancient and not of us, and religion is stupid, and yes, we are a post-religious society, and yes, many people in this country think all religion is daft. But is it? Because those personal insights, all of which are incredibly difficult and painful, that I haven't given the Torah its due, that it's all about me, isn't that the insight that we all need right now? We think we're reading a conversation objectively and listening to the person who we're looking at eye to eye. And what we're actually doing is listening to our own thoughts. We need to get to that 4th step. That 4th step where the 3 hours have gone and we have transformed. Something about us is different. Even in the smallest way, we have made some decision in the process of interacting with someone else, in being that dialogue, in creating a physical manifestation of a yin and yang in that moment through our words, swirling around each other like a profoundly beautiful dance. If we've made it to the end of that 3 hours, we are a new person. We have absorbed another human being, their thoughts, their patience with us as we've messed up, and how we could be patient with them as they have hurt us in that process. Torah offers us this insight that if we keep at it, we have to keep at it honestly. That as we continue our dialogue with our tradition, with our religion, with our liturgy, that it's all about us first, before it can be all about something greater. And we know that it's about something greater when we finish with that conversation with Torah, with the service we're going through right now, with our music, our songs, with our time that we spend virtually and in the future together. If we walk out at the end of that, like so often happens when we leave a synagogue, a church, or a mosque, we slam our car door, upset at the thing that happened. And that's not the conversation we had. But when we walk home or get to our car, or whatever our particular way of getting to and from Shabbat services is, and we step into the car and shake our head and say, yeah, and something's happened. And it's worth getting there. And all it takes is being willing to offend and be offended, to change and be changed, to hurt and be hurt, and to still love each other anyway. Shabbat Shalom. We are on page 310. Please rise for Aleinu. Aleinu l'shabeach la'adon ha'kol, la'tek gdula le'yotzeh bereshit, asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim, ve'natan lanu et torato, va'anachnu korim u'mishtachavim u'modim, לפני מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא, שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוסר ארץ, ומושב יקרו בשמיים ממעל, ושכינתו זו בגובה מרומים. הוא אלוהינו אין עוד, אמת מלכנו אפס זולתו, ככתוב בתורתו, וידעת היום והשבוע
ota el levavecha, ki Adonai hu Elohim, bashamayim mima'al, ve'al haaretz mitachat einod. 3:13, therefore, Almighty God, we put our hope in you. Soon let us witness the glory of your power when the worship of material things shall pass away from the earth, and prejudice and superstition shall at last be cut off. When the rule of the world be set right by the rule of God, and all humanity shall speak out in your name, and all the wicked of the earth shall turn to you, then all who inhabit this world shall meet in understanding, and shall know that we are all partners in the repairing of your world. For yours alone is the true kingdom, and only the glory of your rule endures forever. So it is written in your Torah, the eternal shall be sovereign. So it is written in your Torah, the eternal shall rule forever and ever. So it is prophesied, the eternal shall be sovereign over all the earth. On that day the eternal shall be one, and known as one. V'ne'emar ve'haya Adonai lemelech al kol haaretz bayom hahu yeh Adonai echad u'shemo echad. We take a moment now to step into our place of commemoration and of mourning as we think of those that we've lost in recent days and in previous years. Still in Shloshim in our community, we think of Pat Rubin, we think of Anita Miller, we think of Fred Marshall, we think of Lord Rabbi Jonathan Sachs, and we think as well of Naomi's grandmother, all who passed in these past 4 weeks. Zichronam levacha, may all of their memories forever be a blessing. In our community, we also think of those that we lost at this time in previous years. Specifically this week, we think of Sheila Kay, the mother of Julia Castle. We think of Miriam Rose, the mother of Judith Williams. We think of lifetime president of Sinai, Malcolm Featherman, mourned, of course, by all the Sinai family and immortalized in the names of our rooms in our synagogue, as well as Arnold Goodfield, also mourned by the entire Sinai family. We think of Vanessa Altoft, the sister of Peter Altoft. And we think of Henry Barry Brown, the husband of Maxine Brown and the father of Sally Rodnan Brown. We think of Basil Guler, the husband of Margaret Guler. And we think of Morris Levinson, the uncle of Jonathan Lewis. We think today of Margot Matman de Lue, the aunt of Dolph Mogendorf, who was murdered in Auschwitz. May we never forget. We think as well today of Berta Wassner, the aunt of Viv Mountain and of Val Mogendorf. May all of their memories forever be a blessing. I know that we have not called out every name that we should. Even if you are alone, please call those names out. Zichronam levacha, may all of their memories be for a blessing. We turn to page 316. If you are in mourning or commemorating your site, I invite you to stand first. Then we all stand and join you in solidarity as we step together into this place of mourning with all those that are saying Kaddish at home. Yitgadal. Say shalom bimroma, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imeru, amen. May the source of strength grant strength to all those who are mourning, and may we all say, amen. A few announcements. Again, the most important announcements are going to come via our website and via the weekly emails for members who get those and friends of the community.
on your streaming. If you especially are watching from far-flung parts of this country, Europe, and the planet in general, you are always invited to help support this community. And you'll see buttons right on top. Come back after Shabbat and do that, but all communities are struggling to do their work, and it would be remiss of me to not offer you the opportunity to perform a great mitzvah. I am thrilled to hear that several people have ordered sidurim. The idea is to get our sidurim in your hands. It makes a big difference when you're praying with something in your hands than when you're looking on a computer screen. You're already looking on computer screens too often, so pay via the website, and then Pippa will contact you to arrange collection of your sidur. Next adult education, Gateways into Judaism, is the 22nd at 3:30. It's been fun, I think, and I think it's been fun for others. So keep on coming. I think for the next few weeks I'll keep on announcing class. For those of you who are watching this, the classes are not every week or every other week. They are staggered, so you have to look at the calendar. I know some of you missed last week, but they're not, my calendar is complicated, so you have to look. Also, audio recording of some of my original music I've been using that you may or may not have realized was original, or maybe you did. Just go to the website, to music, and you will find that there's a new audio recording of a lot of the music that's being done on Friday evenings that's new music. Incredibly important, there is a special general meeting that is going to be held on Wednesday, the 9th of December, 7:30 p.m. via Zoom. Upcoming newsletter will have the Zoom details. Incredibly important, dealing with approved 3-year budget. A lot of the conversation we had at the AGM, this is meant to not only fulfill some of the promises, but remain in dialogue with that. I see this as the great ethical work that our trustees are doing. I have profound respect for them. Last announcement, Chidur Mitzvah. Okay, it's not sometimes enough to just do a mitzvah. Sometimes we want to make it a little bit more beautiful. And so we've got this idea of Chidur Mitzvah, to not only just do something, but do it beautifully. And this is a Sinai group, Sinai Facebook group called Chidur Mitzvah. The group is a place to connect Sinai's arts and crafters. So search in Facebook or contact community@sinaileads.uk to find out more. And then finally, the Share the Light campaign started this past Sunday. Go on to our website and take a look at that, and one of our many community initiatives. So with that, I think we should probably have a final song. Now, I'm going to do something I don't usually do. For a final song, I'm going to do the Micha Mocha, and that's because tonight, for the first time at this community, I did Dan Nichols' Micha Mocha. Dan Nichols, I think, is one of the great American Reform musicians out there now, and you love him even if you don't realize it, because the Hashkivenu that I do is Dan's Hashkivenu. He's also one of the most genuine souls I have ever met in my life. And so I'm going to, when we need more light in this darkness of winter time, we need to sing more joyfully sometimes. And I do very meditative services on occasion. So sometimes bringing out a little bit more joy. I think this melody is one of the most joyful Micha Mochas that's out there. So Yadai Dai, Micha Mocha, let's get this song in our head. Ya na 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 na. Ya na 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 na. Ya na 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 na. Ya na 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 na. Micha Mocha. Micha Mocha ba'elim Adonai, Mi kamocha nedar v'kodesh. Micha Mocha ba'elim Adonai, Mi kamocha nedar v'kodesh. Nora tehilot osei felei, Nora tehilot osei felei Adonai, imloch leolam va'ed. Na 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 na. Ya na 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 na. Ya na 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 na. Ya na 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 na. Now the way this works is I sing Nora and you sing Tehilot. I sing Osei, you sing Fele. I sing Nora, you sing Tehilot. Osei Fele Adonai Yimloch Leolam Va'ed. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. See, you're smiling, aren't you? If you are still here and joining me for Kiddush, please pour yourself a little fruit of the vine. Always a reminder that it is a Kabbalistic tradition to hold our Kiddush cups like this instead of like this. Part of the reason is because Kiddush is acknowledging our relationship to vertical God instead of horizontal. Vertical is that which is greater than us. Horizontal is the eternal as the eternal appears in each of us. So this is a moment of that connection. And of course, we've got two opposites that join. So we're looking at the broken aspects of the universe that through our intentionality, we rejoin together. You don't have to do this. It is a Kabbalistic tradition. The other imagery is the rose of Sharon in the Song of Solomon. And this is a rose that our hand becomes enveloping the sunlight as the sunlight causes the rose to grow. Beautiful symbolism in that. Va'erev va'yivoka yom hashishi, va'yichul hashemayim ve'ha'aretz v'chol tzava'am, va'yichal Elohim b'yom hashvi'i melakto asher asa, va'yishbot b'yom hashvi'i mikol melakto asher asa, va'yivarech Elohim et yom hashvi'i va'yikedesh oto, ki vo shavat mikol melakto asher bara Elohim la'asot, savri chavarai. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei pori hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho b'ratzon hinchelanu zikarod le'maaseh v'reshit ki hu yom techila lemikraye kodesh zecher l'tziat mitzrayim kivanu v'charta ve'otanu kidashta mikol hamim Shabbat kodshecha be'ahava uvratzon hinchaltanu Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh haShabbat l'chaim. L'chaim. And finally, a little bit of Farbringen for us. I'm so glad that you're all out there. Oh, by the way, I am not leading services next weekend. It's my weekend off. I forgot to put that in the announcements. So lay-led services, absolutely come join. Just wanted to make sure, especially for those who are waking up early in the morning to see these services, that I am going to be taking a little break. So anyway, l'chaim, here's to us. Baruch atah Adonai melech haolam shechol niyeh bevaro l'chaim, l'chaim. Shabbat shalom, everyone.